Lewis Hamilton betrays Ferrari to join Mercedes before the Singapore Grand Prix. Stay until the end to see when Ferrari will leak the news and be the first to know. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking. From the earliest moments when subtle hints began drifting between engineers and insiders inside the Formula One paddock, the atmosphere was thick with disbelief. At first, everyone treated the speculation as nothing more than noise, the kind of rumor that always surfaces during moments of tension. But as the days passed, the whispers grew louder, and they carried a weight that could no longer be ignored. It became increasingly clear that Lewis Hamilton, the driver Ferrari had positioned as the face of their revival and the man they had promised would bring the championship back to Maranello, was quietly reshaping his destiny. The grand contract that was once presented as the defining chapter of his career was now being dismantled in the shadows. Hamilton had begun working with the same intensity he once brought to the racetrack, aligning again with Toto Wolff, the figure who stood beside him during his greatest triumphs, and together they were piecing together a sensational return to Mercedes. This was no rash decision made in anger after a bad weekend. It was a process driven by calculation, persistence, and a sense of urgency. Hamilton had reached the point where faith in Ferrari's ability to provide him with a winning car was gone. He had endured too many weekends where strategy calls betrayed him, where the machinery beneath him failed to match his skill, and where the promises from Maranello's leadership never materialized on the track. He knew that time was against him, that each season mattered more than the last, and that waiting patiently for a miracle was not an option. Those who know him say he began signaling his intentions long before the first rumors reached the press, quietly making it clear to Wolff that he was open to breaking ties and chasing one last surge of dominance in familiar colors. Their reconnection carried the intensity of two generals preparing for battle. Meetings were held far from the spotlight, in places so ordinary they would never raise suspicion. When geography kept them apart, they relied on late-night encrypted communication, their conversations stretching into hours as they mapped out what seemed impossible only months earlier. For Wolff, there was no hesitation. He had always believed Hamilton represented the peak of what a driver could deliver for Mercedes, and the prospect of working together again was irresistible. For Hamilton, the appeal was not only about winning but about being part of a team where trust, structure, and unity were guaranteed. When the subject of money emerged, both men were cautious, aware that headlines could easily distort their motives. Hamilton wanted recognition, but not extravagance. He wanted respect without distraction. After weeks of back and forth, the agreement was sealed at $20 million a year. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking. To outsiders, the figure seemed modest compared to the astronomical sums he once commanded, but for both sides, its value was symbolic. It represented balance, loyalty, and a shared focus on victory. Performance-based incentives were built into the contract, meaning every race, every podium, and every shot at the championship would directly raise his rewards. In that structure, Hamilton tied his future not to static numbers but to the success he was determined to achieve. As this revelation spread, it sent waves of tension and excitement across the sport. Ferrari, once convinced Hamilton would cement their glory, now faces humiliation as their supposed savior prepares to leave without fulfilling the promise of titles. Within Mercedes, energy is surging as staff anticipate a reunion that could reignite their dominance, though uncertainty lingers about which current driver will be sacrificed to make room. Rivals are unsettled, already calculating how Hamilton's return could reshape the entire competitive landscape. Among fans, the reaction is explosive. Some celebrate the possibility of Hamilton's comeback story, while others see betrayal in his decision to abandon Ferrari. Social media is a battlefield, split between those who see him as a genius strategist and those who brand him as disloyal. Hamilton himself appears unmoved by the noise. He has never been content to watch his career fade into mediocrity, never satisfied with letting others dictate how his story ends. This decision is his way of reclaiming control, of ensuring his final chapters are written on his terms, in the place where he once built an empire. Wolff sees it as a chance to restore Mercedes to its rightful place at the top, to reignite a partnership that once defined an era. For the sport, it is nothing short of theater at its highest level. Betrayal, ambition, risk, and redemption intertwined in a saga that will be remembered as one of the most dramatic turns in modern Formula One history. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking. The turning point of the entire saga was not found in contracts, financial clauses, or lawyers drafting carefully worded documents, but in the human cost that shook Mercedes to its core. At the center stood Andrea "Kimi" Antonelli, the Italian prodigy whose name had become synonymous with Mercedes' future. 4 years, his rise had been carefully engineered, his career molded step by step, with the full weight of the factory team behind him. Every triumph in the junior categories, every calculated move into higher series, had been crafted to prepare him for the inevitable moment when he would step into Formula One as the natural heir to Mercedes' legacy. He was regarded not merely as a driver in training but as the promise of continuity, the face of a new generation meant to carry the team beyond the Hamilton era. When Lewis Hamilton's sudden re-emergence became a possibility, all of those plans collapsed in an instant. Toto Wolff, renowned for his ability to separate sentiment from strategy, acted with ruthless clarity. He called Antonelli for a private meeting, one that those aware of its content have described as brutally decisive. Wolff told him directly that the seat long considered his would no longer be available. The reasoning was delivered without hesitation. Mercedes had chosen to reinstate Hamilton immediately. Wolff explained that in a sport where fractions of a second decide legacies, hesitation was unforgivable. With Red Bull maintaining a stranglehold on championships, McLaren pushing forward with bold upgrades, and Ferrari trying desperately to recover stability, Mercedes could not turn down the chance to bring back a driver of Hamilton's caliber. It was not only about sentiment or history, it was about survival and dominance. Antonelli's response was one of quiet dignity. Though devastated, he listened carefully, absorbing the weight of the moment without protest. His acknowledgement that Hamilton's return would alter the landscape of the sport revealed a maturity beyond his years. Privately, the pain was undeniable. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, stolen just as it was within reach. Yet he understood that Hamilton was not just another competitor returning to the grid, but a force capable of reshaping the entire competitive order. Even in disappointment, Antonelli's composure left an impression on those around him, a sign that his time, though delayed, would still come. While Mercedes executed its plan with cold precision, Ferrari was unraveling in chaos. Hidden from their view, Hamilton's legal team had spent months scouring his contract, identifying an obscure but powerful clause that would allow him to walk away before September 30th without facing ruinous penalties. It was a secret known to only a tiny circle of trusted confidants, and once discovered, it became the instrument Hamilton used to pry himself free. Ferrari, consumed by internal turmoil and haunted by years of instability, never saw it coming. By the time the truth surfaced, Hamilton had already set the wheels in motion. For Ferrari's leadership, the revelation was a humiliation of staggering proportions. They had believed Hamilton's arrival marked the start of a new era, one where the team would finally reclaim its place at the pinnacle of Formula One. Instead, before the first chapter had even been fully written, their star was plotting an escape. The Scuderia, battered by constant leadership changes and repeated disappointments, found itself once again humiliated on the global stage. The heartbreak among the tifosi was immediate and merciless. Generations of fans who had longed for Hamilton to bring the championship back to Maranello were shattered. Social media erupted in a storm of rage, disbelief, and despair. Dreams of watching Hamilton draped in scarlet, celebrating victories in Monza, evaporated overnight. For supporters who had endured years of frustration, his departure was not a mere contractual maneuver, it was a wound that cut deep, a betrayal that felt personal. The word treason was echoed across fan groups and media platforms, as Hamilton's exit came to symbolize not only the loss of hope but the collapse of trust. Now Ferrari is left scrambling, its vision in tatters, while Mercedes has seized a moment that could redefine the championship fight. And at the center of the storm is Hamilton, a man who has once again proven that his influence extends far beyond the racetrack. His timing, his ability to maneuver through politics, and his instinct for reshaping the sport in his favor show that Formula One is never just about speed. It is about power, leverage, and the courage to act when opportunities appear. Hamilton has shown that he can bend the direction of the sport itself, leaving behind devastation for some and renewed hope for others, as the balance of power shifts yet again in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. Mercedes has been moving with an almost invisible precision, quietly setting every piece into place while the rest of the world speculates without knowing how advanced their work truly is. Inside Brackley, the project has taken on the energy of a revival, as if the entire team has been waiting for this moment to come. Toto Wolff has not wasted a second, ensuring Hamilton's reintroduction is more than symbolic. It is practical, immediate, and deeply calculated. The W16 is being reshaped with an obsessive level of detail, its cockpit undergoing modifications so personal that every touch point reflects Hamilton's natural rhythm. From the exact contour of the seat to the unique resistance of the brake pedal, the car is being molded into something that will feel like an extension of him the instant he straps in. Engineers who once stood at his side during Mercedes' championship dominance have returned, carrying with them libraries of data, countless hours of telemetry, and the memory of how Hamilton extracts speed from situations that seem impossible. They are breathing life back into numbers, converting archived knowledge into a machine tuned for his instinct. The simulator work is equally intense, described by insiders as relentless, with shifts running deep into the night. Hamilton's style has already been built into the virtual model, creating a digital car that reacts with the same fluidity he brings on track. Tire management sequences, ERS deployment habits, and even his uncanny ability to adapt to sudden changes in track conditions are being hardwired into the system, allowing the team to prepare for his input before he even provides it. It is a strange paradox. Hamilton is not yet physically in the car, but the W16 already carries his signature. Every lap being run in simulation is a rehearsal for a partnership that has, in many ways, never truly ended. The decision to make Singapore the stage is nothing short of masterful. Few venues match its combination of intensity and spectacle. Under the floodlights, surrounded by the towering skyline, Hamilton's return will unfold like theater, a spectacle designed to leave an imprint on fans and rivals alike. There is no place to hide on those streets, no margin for error in the sweltering heat, and that is precisely why Wolff has chosen it. The sight of Hamilton in silver once again, carving through the demanding corners of Marina Bay, will be as powerful psychologically as it is competitively. It signals not just a return, but a rebirth, in one of the most punishing environments imaginable. Singapore is notorious for revealing the truth about both driver and machine. Its relentless succession of corners, suffocating humidity, and constant pressure expose weaknesses like few circuits can. It is a race where mistakes multiply, where fatigue eats away at concentration, and where only those with absolute control prevail. Hamilton has proven time and again that he thrives under such conditions, producing performances that others could not replicate. By choosing this venue, Mercedes is betting on his unmatched ability to combine endurance with precision, ensuring that his comeback does not begin in the shadows but on a track that magnifies excellence. The effect of this move is already reverberating across the grid. Rivals who had settled into their storylines now face the reality of Hamilton's resurgence in a car designed for him. Teams are rethinking strategies, drivers are quietly calculating the challenge ahead, and the psychological impact is undeniable. The idea of Hamilton stepping back into silver at one of the toughest circuits on the calendar is enough to unsettle even the most confident competitors. Every camera flash, every lap time, every sector under the Singapore lights will serve as a reminder that he is back, and he is not here to fade quietly into history. This is more than a reunion, it is a disruption planned with surgical intent. The fusion of meticulous preparation, dramatic symbolism, and Hamilton's undiminished hunger makes his return to Mercedes not just another storyline, but a defining moment set to alter the trajectory of the championship and reignite the intensity of the entire sport. The decision of Lewis Hamilton to step back into Mercedes has unleashed a wave of intensity that has already begun to ripple through every layer of Formula One. What might appear on paper as the return of a veteran driver is being interpreted within the sport as a declaration, a bold maneuver meant to disrupt, intimidate, and reshape the competitive landscape. The entire paddock feels the tremor. Rivals speak cautiously, analysts are dissecting every angle, and fans are drawn in with a level of anticipation rarely seen in modern racing. Ferrari, who believed they had secured the ultimate prize by persuading Hamilton to wear red, are now left grappling with disbelief and wounded pride. Publicly, they will insist this is nothing more than the natural rhythm of the sport, projecting calm and claiming focus on the future. But beneath the polished exterior there is frustration, a recognition that their vision has been fractured, and that losing a driver of his magnitude is not merely a sporting setback but a symbolic defeat that will haunt them long after the headlines fade. Mercedes views the situation through an entirely different lens. Hamilton's return is not a sentimental gesture, nor a nostalgic throwback. It is a carefully calculated strike intended to unsettle the competition and reassert authority. The very presence of Hamilton in silver destabilizes the paddock, forcing Red Bull to reconsider their dominance, compelling Ferrari to explain their failure, and pushing every other team to accept that the balance of power has suddenly shifted. The ripple effects are unmistakable. Sponsors who had turned their focus elsewhere are already re-engaging, eager to attach themselves to a story of resurgence. Broadcasters prepare for a global audience drawn not just by the races but by the spectacle of Hamilton's comeback. Within rival garages, Quiet conversations reveal anxiety, as team principals and technical directors understand the psychological force of his return, an intangible factor that unsettles even the most confident competitors. Hamilton himself has been deliberately enigmatic when facing the media. He has offered only fragments, carefully chosen phrases about unfinished business, and suggestions that the timing is finally right. These remarks, though sparse, ignite speculation and allow him to control the narrative without revealing his full intentions. Away from the cameras, however, a very different picture emerges. Those close to him describe an energy they have not seen in years, a renewed sense of focus, and an almost obsessive determination to shape the ending of his career on his own terms. Training has intensified, his commitment in technical meetings is absolute, and the fire that once carried him to 7 world championships appears to burn brighter than ever. He is not returning to be celebrated as a relic of the past, nor to drift quietly toward retirement. He comes back as a fighter, as a champion unwilling to accept decline, intent on silencing critics who questioned whether the hunger still remained. For Toto Wolff, the reunion is far more than a driver returning to the team. It is the restoration of a partnership that defined an era, a bond forged through triumphs and challenges, through dominance and controversy, through years of setting the standard for the rest of the grid. To see Hamilton back in Mercedes' colors reignites belief that their combination can once again command the sport. Wolff understands that the move is not only strategic but symbolic, sending a message across Formula One that Mercedes refuses to fade into the shadows. Together, he and Hamilton represent a renewed force, calculated, relentless, and prepared to challenge anyone standing in their way. Their shared history is a reminder to rivals that when aligned, they are capable of creating dynasties, and the prospect of them working side by side again is enough to unsettle even the most established teams. The entire sport now feels as though it is standing on the edge of something extraordinary. Rivals glance over their shoulders, journalists chase every rumor, and fans across the globe count down the days until the story unfolds on track. This return is more than a sporting event, it is a cultural moment, one charged with themes of redemption, ambition, pride, and legacy. Hamilton's decision has already rewritten the narrative of the season, and his presence ensures that every race will carry the weight of history. Legends do not fade quietly, and this comeback is proof that when the opportunity presents itself, they rise again, stronger, hungrier, and determined to leave a mark that cannot be erased. The night in Singapore hums with electricity, the floodlights casting sharp reflections on the water as engines snarl in the background and the grandstands tremble with expectation. Every fan, every rival, every member of the paddock feels the gravity of what is about to unfold. Lewis Hamilton, who only weeks ago was wrapped in Ferrari red, has detonated one of the most shocking twists the sport has ever seen. With contracts torn, promises broken, and tifosi left in disbelief, he now slides back into the seat of a Mercedes, the car that carried him to immortality. The colors of silver and black cling to him like destiny itself, and beside him stands Toto Wolff, expression unreadable yet eyes burning with quiet certainty, ready to restart the partnership that once dismantled an entire era of competition. The betrayal burns in Italy. Supporters who believed Hamilton would lead them into a new golden age feel abandoned, their dream collapsing in an instant. The tifosi whisper words like treachery and desertion, their passion turning into heartbreak as they face the reality that the man they welcomed as a savior has chosen a different path. But on the opposite side, Mercedes faithful erupt with energy. For them this is not treason, it is the restoration of balance, the return of a warrior to the empire he helped build, the reunion of a force that once looked untouchable. In the garages around the circuit, unease grows. Verstappen, who has raced with an aura of inevitability, must now reckon with the return of the only rival capable of matching his fire. Russell, caught between ambition and loyalty, realizes the challenge of fighting alongside the man who shaped the team's greatest triumphs. And in Ferrari's corner, Charles Leclerc wears the weight of betrayal more heavily than anyone. He has been left alone, forced to carry the expectations of an entire nation while his teammate reappears in enemy colors. Hamilton lowers his visor, fingers tightening around the steering wheel, his body language exuding calm while his intent radiates like a storm. This is no sentimental return, no soft farewell tour. This is a strike, calculated and ruthless, sealed with $20 million and driven by the hunger that refuses to fade. Marina Bay, with its punishing walls and relentless corners, is the perfect stage. Here under the glow of neon, mistakes are unforgiven, bravery is rewarded, and only those who embrace the chaos rise above it. The world watches because this race is no longer just about points. It is about power, legacy, vengeance, and the rewriting of a story that seemed already told. Tonight, the stage becomes larger than the sport itself, because Hamilton's return has torn open a new era. Singapore is no longer just another night race. It is the epicenter of a storm that will be remembered for generations, the evening when loyalty shattered, destiny realigned, and the roar of an engine carried with it the weight of betrayal, rebirth, and history colliding under the lights.